All right, we are live, and I already get the quips about being late and being a boomer. Since you're going to gripe at me anyway, why should I bother being on time? Today we've got two guests. Alison will be here at some point for part of the show too. Trying something different. I have David Whitehead, which is awesome. He is DWTruthwarrior. For some crazy reason, it typoed or corrected, or I was an idiot, but I accidentally wrote his name wrong. It's DWTruthwarrior, and you're going to help me understand everything that's going on with the Freedom Convoy in Canada. I understand you're on top of it. I've had people write in saying you got to get him on. Fortunately, I could get a hold of you. How you doing?
Oh, good. Well, thanks for bringing me on, Eric. This is great. First time to be on the show, and I'm happy to be here. And I would love to talk to you about the Great Canadian Trucker Convoy. There's so many awesome things that are happening right now. I can barely keep up. News is pouring in by the minute, but yeah, this is going to be a great conversation.
You know, I'm excited. I'm good friends with David Freiheit or Viva Fry, and he's been out there walking around in Ottawa, and he's super excited. And I realized, no offense, but Canada's been looking like garbage. I mean, Canada, fortunately you had Australia, who was a little bit worse. So you could always, hang your head up and say, we're not them, but you look pretty impressive. So it's awesome seeing that Canada is the source of some kind of freedom. And I think that's awesome.
Well, I didn't know, Eric, how many people were awake to what was really going on. I don't think anybody did until I think a week ago. Most Canadians felt isolated. They felt like they were the only ones. A lot of us were lamenting our country and realizing just how much we've lost and how quickly that's happened and how it felt extremely hopeless. I was talking to my wife again a week ago, and we were talking seriously about, can we even continue to raise our children in this country, the direction that it's going? It's just shocking. It's very saddening. I was born and raised in this country. Both sides of my family fought in the wars. And we've never really had a massive grassroots resistance freedom movement here. We've definitely gotten excited about hockey games and a few little things here and there, but I have never seen anything like this. So as soon as I got word of this convoy, I thought, well, maybe this will end up just going the way that Australia's trucker convoy went, where they tried to kick it off last year, but it didn't quite get the momentum that they needed. They, of course, have had some incredible protests and whatnot, but yeah, Australia, Austria, I mean, there's some scary places in the world. Quebec is also one of the worst lockdown places. Ontario in Canada is one of the worst lockdown provinces. I live in the west coast of Canada. I'm in British Columbia, and it's definitely moving more and more authoritarian all the time. And so when they announced this thing and it exploded, like I've never seen anything go that viral before. And then I went out to see for myself. I mean, I couldn't go all the way to Ottawa. I really wanted to. I had to do everything to stop myself from jumping in my truck and driving from the west coast of Canada all the way to Ontario, which if you take out a map, you realize just how massive this country is and how treacherous those road conditions are in January across Canada, right? It's insane. So we decided I'd stick back. But I went to a solidarity protest in Victoria, British Columbia, which is on the island where I live. And I've never seen anything like it. The ground was shaking. It was massive. And the momentum is just incredible. And I was out today in my local town with a bunch of protesters holding the flag and people were honking at us. Yeah, we still get our fair share of people flipping the bird at us. But, let's be honest, they don't have an argument. So we'll let them have the finger because that's all they've got. Everybody else was honking in support, waving the flag. Everybody's happy. The energy's off the charts in this country right now. And I have a feeling this is only the beginning.
That has to reinforce it. I don't know about you, but I've spent a lot of time lately just going, am I crazy? I mean, am I crazy? This stuff doesn't make sense. So when you see this kind of groundswell coming up, it's like, it just seems like your whole country is awakening, because I can't think of any more down to earth folks than truck drivers. They're the heart and soul. Literally, they're like the capillaries of your country. All goods go with them. They transport everything. So, I mean, they're so representative of literally just common man. I can't think of any better group, but they also have some power. And that's what I appreciate is you need people like them. Or we had it here in the States, actually. The truck drivers stymied them up a bit. But even before that, it was the pilots. The pilots union were like, you know what, screw you. Go fly your own plane. And well, no, I'm not going to get it. I don't care. What are you going to do to me? And it worked. I mean, it's like, you can't just go replace a bunch of pilots. Well, it's the same thing with the truckers. You cannot go replace the truckers when your supply lines are already gagging and falling apart. It's just pointing at every weakness. And the response that I've seen from, I just say your government and everything else, is they just keep doubling down, though. I mean, what was it they said? They said that, well, we're doing this mandate for the protection of the truckers. That you kind of are like, how do you get this? This is some of that new math.
There's a lot of that weird math going around. And I know the truckers here, they're the salt of the earth. They're great people. And it's amazing how many people are biting the hand that feeds them right now, attacking the truckers, calling them racist, homophobic, what's all the words Trudeau's trying to use, doubling down in just an incredibly divisive non-leadership stance where he doesn't even want to go talk to them. He doesn't even know what they want. I don't think he even knows what they want. It's all disconnected from reality. But that's the Ottawa elite class. It's very similar to what's going on in the States, where it's very disconnected from the people. We know these people are puppets. They're operating for a global international agenda, in my opinion. I think it's crystal clear. I mean, Trudeau's come out and said it in plain English, and his actions also speak louder than words. And the media in this country is just absolutely horrendous. I mean, you thought CNN was bad. Go look at what CBC News is reporting these days. It's just insane. It's complete lies. And that's what people need to understand. Everything that the government and the media in Canada is saying is 100% lies. So they're trying to paint a movement of Canadians, millions of Canadians now. It's growing, and because people are gaining confidence in the fact that now, like you said, they have this support, so they can come out and they can wave their flag and be proud of their country again. They come from all backgrounds. They come from many different walks of life. They come from all political parties. And don't forget, Canada doesn't just have like the Democrats versus the Republicans. We have all these parties, these little tiny parties. So our elections are already really screwed up. So people come from so many different opinions here, but yet we're unifying. A lot of people are unifying under this banner because this represents, it started with the trucker mandate, right? Like the truckers were like, hey, we just don't want to show our papers at the border, and we don't, vaxxed or unvaxxed, we don't want to do this because the government, we don't want them to have that kind of control. And then it blossomed into, no, this is for every Canadian's rights. And then it's now turned into very much about getting Trudeau and that cabinet out of government, because there is a lot of problems with that government. And there's a lot of issues in this country that need to be fixed. And it's just grown. And so what I love seeing is how many people are burying old hatchets. Like I was talking to some of my friends. I have a lot of friends on the ground in Ottawa, and they were saying, we're watching Albertans arm in arm with Quebecers singing the national anthem. We've never seen that before because there's always been these little inner struggles between different groups. We have the First Nations, Indigenous people of this country that Trudeau used to hide behind during the summer of 2020, are coming together behind this movement. Not all of them, of course. It's divided amongst all the groups, but there's a massive showing there. There's African people here. There's people from France. It's an amazing, the Sikh community. There's a big trucker representation in the Sikh community, the Sikh Indian community here that are behind this. So for Trudeau and the media to go around saying, this is about white supremacy, Nazism in Canada, because we staged a photo op with a flag in the background way out down Spark Street or something like a week before the protest. And they're trying to cast shade on this. It's career suicide for every politician that's supporting that lie. And the word on the street is that Canada has fired the mainstream media. They no longer want to know what they have to say. They're tuning into podcasts like mine and so many others. They're doing their own independent investigation. They're listening to the people on the ground instead of reading the newspapers. And that's a good sign. And you know what? There's no putting this cat back in the bag. They could round up this trucker convoy tomorrow, and the people that saw what happened will never forget it. And it just shows that Canada's not finished yet. We got a lot of fight in us, and we're going to save this country one way or another.
All right. I got Alison here with us, my co-host. And Alison has suffered and lost her job due to, if you will, the beer bug. That's one of the terms that I like hearing. We're just talking about what's going on with Canada. I guess I'm wondering.
What is the beer bug?
Think about it. There's a beer out of Mexico. It's called Corona.
Oh, yeah, but mine was that we're talking about it.
I know. Well, it's one way or another to get you.
Oh, yeah. I was fired over, allowing people, not even me, listening to people talk about it in a way that my boss didn't like.
Oh my
exactly.
God.
So they're going to go after you one way or another. I'm wondering if this is like cancer, in the sense that everybody knows somebody who has cancer, has had cancer, has been affected by it. Everybody knows a trucker. There's a trucker in almost every family. And I think it's widespread enough that maybe that's why people are coming together so much too. It's just like, okay, well, maybe there's a bunch of crazy truckers, but my cousin is down there. My cousin's not crazy.
Well, and I think a lot of people are sick and tired of being divided in Canada. That's been a horrible thing that's been going on ever since this prime minister has been in office, but especially the last 2 years, trying to divide us by every possible way, by race, by gender, by political affiliation, by now it's vax status, and whether you love wearing 2 face masks or not. Like, there's just endless amounts of division. And this is the first movement that I've ever seen to echo literally across the entire country. And I always want to stress, Canada as a landmass is massive. Yeah, and there's a lot of land between places. So Canada physically is divided already. And yet we're all coming together, driving for miles and miles to go to various protests and hook up with different convoys, and just the magic in the air. I've never seen people so lit up, and people are sick of all this depressing, locked in the house. I never want to see another human being again, living in fear. Nobody knows what's what. People are done with that now. It's been 2 years of this madness. And so they're like, we need to end the mandates, because the direction of this country isn't going to stop with vax mandates and all that stuff. It's going to move into social credit scores. It's going to move into this great reset. And what I love is seeing, like, there's signs, there's little old ladies with signs that are talking about Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and investigate the World Economic Forum, and like to see that kind of awareness amongst the average Canadian. Because
Melinda might be carrying a sign soon, dude. Melinda herself might be carrying a sign, because she just dumped it. She's not donating to the Gates Foundation anymore. That just came out today.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you want to find out what's going on? Get with the ex. Get with the ex-wife, man. It's not.
Somebody needs to get Jeff Zucker's ex-wife, right? So we can find out why he really resigned from CNN.
Yeah, something tells me about an affair 6 months ago that everyone knew about might not be the actual reason that he quit immediately, effective immediately. It's like, oh, well, you've got a conscience today. He hasn't had a conscience this whole time that everybody's known about it, but suddenly today he developed a conscience and said, oh, I got to quit right now. Right now. It's important.
Fishy. Little fishy.
Hey, I'm just so happy to see him gone. Who cares?
Yeah. Like, well, there'll be another one of him that's going to take his throne. We don't have to worry about that.
I know, but it's fun to see him and Como and Lemon soon. And come on, just savor the moment. Savor the moment.
I just think it's funny that Brian Stelter has to be the guy to read the eulogies for all of these people every single time. It's just so funny.
Until his turn.
Reliable sources, Brian.
Say that again.
Reliable sources, Brian, you mean?
Yeah. He's like the funeral director of CNN careers. And I just think it would be hilarious to put a compilation of him reading. In fact, you know what? Don't anybody else do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put it together. I'm going to put all of his, today we learned that blah, blah, blah is quitting CNN, or today somebody got fired from CNN. I'm just going to put them right next to
the Matt Orfala, like Matt Orfala does.
Don't give him the idea. I want to be the one who does it.
If he hears it, he'll know that he's stealing it from you. That's a good guy.
Don't steal it.
Do the Brian Stelter supercut.
Yeah. He did write me back. Remember when he wrote me back to my request to have him on?
All right.
He said, sorry, I can't.
Have you been following this, Alison? in
The
Canada?
trucker protest?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I watched a really fascinating discussion between, let me know if you're not familiar, but Curtis Stone, the urban farmer, Canadian guy, is more than 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. And
I haven't heard of him.
And then, of course, everyone knows Owen Benjamin, or at least,
Yeah,
Eric knows. So
yes,
the two of them were, what'd you say?
Yes, I know Owen.
So the two of them, I actually randomly caught it. I'm kind of surprised that YouTube promoted it when I was, I just happened to be looking through stuff and they were live. And so I tuned in, and it was interesting because Owen was like very skeptical of it being like taken over like January 6th was and becoming some kind of psyop for the government. One of the things I remember him saying was like, don't go to any government building unless you're really ready to take it over, because they'll just take over you. But Curtis was all about it and everything. Anyway, they just had a really interesting conversation about how movements go from being organically organized, or, and to being co-opted by powers that would want to use it for their own purposes. And, I find myself wondering a lot nowadays about everything that makes it in the news, or all these, big things that grab people's attentions. Like the latest thing with Spotify and Joe Rogan, for instance. I don't know. There's just part of me is like, was this by design? Like, just to get us more used to, I'm not saying this for the truckers, but I'm just saying, like, now I look at events and I always wonder, like, okay, how is this going to go? Is this going to just be one of those moments that everybody can be happy and like somebody in the chat's like white pilled about, or is there something else going to happen that which is going to take another turn and the world's going to explode? Like, I have a very hard time just being innocently and hopeful anymore. I feel like I'm like last thing I was real fast. Like, my husband this morning was telling me about, he's been gone on a work trip for a while, so he's like tuning into the latest news. He's like, oh, did you know all these European countries are lifting their restrictions on COVID? And my immediate reaction was like, there's something behind it. There's no way all of them are doing this at the same time just because they just decided this is the right thing to do. They got what they wanted. And he's like, or they could just realize that their people are tired of it and maybe it's time to move on. I'm like, it's never that simple. Like, I find myself, I'm so down the rabbit hole at this point, man. I need help. I'm telling you.
Okay, couple things on that. One, they are trying to do that. I don't know, David, did you see somehow they managed to find a Confederate battle flag with a truck on it to march around. There was a dude with that on who was fully in disguise, and everyone was kind of backing away from like the plague. So I think that might have been the Fed representation or somebody over there trying to get that photo out, because he managed to be near he or she managed to be near a reporter at the same time. So there is already there's going to be a little bit of that. And then they're reporting that supposedly there's desecration of the statues, that they're being urinated on or whatever. And David was walking around with his phone going, well, that's white snow. I wouldn't even warn Ethan to, not eat it. So they are trying to do that. But Alison, to your point, you can actually be white pilled and jaded at the same time. That's kind of where I am. I see it as, who cares what their motivation is? Let's take the win. Because I think you're going to see that happening in the States. And the narrative is going to be, through the strong, steady hand of our president, we have found our way through this pandemic that was created by the last guy. Thank you for fixing it all. So they'll just declare victory. It'll be like George Bush on the boat, victory declared. Call it a day. Problem solved. Pandemic over. Have a nice day.
And we'll just sit here and say, okay, great.
Well, take the win. What do you think, David?
Well, this is what I've been actually fighting against in my narrative. What I'm putting out on my show is I'm 100% against the black-pilled people, man. These guys, and I get it, and I respect everybody that's critical of everything. But I'm with you, Ian. We got to take the win where we see it, and even if they planned this as a psyop, it's backfiring because it's catching fire in this country and waking up real people who are really, really, really upset at the government, who are now emboldened to a level that was never possible before. So if they planned this as a psyop to keep us enslaved even further, it was a really bad idea to do it like this. If they were going to plan an actual January 6th insurrection, they should have done it on the 29th, which all they could really muster was that one flag, a staged photo op with a Nazi flag, and then them saying it's all backfiring. This is what's beautiful already. So them saying that they're defacing statues of Terry Fox and all this kind of stuff, when all they did was wrap a couple flags on the guy and put a sign in his hand that said "Mandate Freedom," which Terry Fox would have supported. You know, we totally destroyed those optics by having those videos go viral that came from people that were on the ground. So they didn't really win that one. The Ottawa police are largely in support of these truckers, and they're standing there having coffee with these guys. The big concern comes, of course, from the RCMP, which is the national police. And you know, they tried to call a bunch of tow trucking companies, but
I heard they had the COVID.
Tow trucking, right? Tow truckers are going to go pull trucker. They don't know that there's a code of honor amongst
I know, it's so funny.
truckers.
Apparently, they all said, "I'm sorry, we're sick.
We're sick. We got the Rona," just like Trudeau allegedly hiding behind the curtains in Tofino or whatever. So, you know, I look at it like this. I come from the martial art world, all right? And what I found is that there's a lot of people that are in the sort of journalist field or analysis field who, you know, they come from looking at everything on a whiteboard and they see the history. Yes, we know they're going to stage false flags. The trucking convoy was well aware of that when they organized this. Everybody here is pretty aware of what they're going to try to do. And everything they try to do keeps backfiring immediately on them, just because there's just that many people that are watching this and are a part of it and know that it's wrong. So I say, well, let's keep the spirit, because if you're going to save your country, you need the people of your country to have hope that they can save their country. You need, and something I know that from being a fighter, if I'm in my corner and I'm in a 12-round world championship fight, I don't want my corner man to always be like, hey, every time you throw a punch, they're going to try to throw a punch back. So we better just pack it up and not be here. Like, that's ridiculous. See, you're going to say, no, you're going to punch, they're going to punch back, and you're going to punch them back, because this is a fight and there's two sides in every fight. So you need to have that, not a pie in the sky, fairies and rainbows, unrealistic view, but you also don't want to have the other version of that, which is you're so negative and pessimistic about everything that you don't even have any energy to go out and win the battle. So I've been using this example. If we're on a front line, and metaphorically we've got an army behind us, and we've got this invading army ready to come in and conquer us and enslave all of our people, I want the people at my back that are banging the spear against their shield, going, "Hoorah, let's go on our shield," or we're coming home with our shield or on it. I don't want to be with all the people in the back that go, "Dude, the minute we start shooting arrows at them, they're going to shoot arrows back. Oh my God, we shouldn't fight for our freedom." Come on, let's fight this. Let's win this. We need a positive attitude. And yeah, they're going to do stuff. They're going to lie about you. They're going to try to set you up, but be prepared for it and fight onwards anyways. You know what I mean?
Well, and Alison, I don't know if you saw Glenn Youngkin. You know, he became governor of Virginia. Right before he became governor, they had a line of people with white shirts and tiki torches greeting his bus, which obviously brought up Charlottesville in everyone's mind. Remember the Nazi march, you know, all that, and then that poor lady got killed. I mean, obviously there was a monster there who ran her down and killed her. Horrible thing. But he has nothing to do with tiki torches and everything. But there's a problem. Everyone's aware of this now. So people are taking pictures of the torch-bearing tiki torch bearers. They were all part of the opposition campaign. They were literally campaign workers for Terry McAuliffe.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
It just backfired. So I think that there's a lot of, you know, like right now, you know, the guy with the Confederate, everybody's like getting away from him. There's somebody else, you know, was it Roy Epps? When you look at the video, everybody's yelling, "Fed, Fed, 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 Fed." I mean, people are onto it now. And I think that they're like, okay, we got to come up with some new tricks.
That's what I'm saying, man. I've never heard the term controlled opposition used by grandmas in the way that it's being used right now. It's like, I didn't even know what that word meant a year ago. And now I hear everybody saying controlled opposition. I'm like, why is that trending? It is kind of weird. And the only reason I guess I bring this up and just saying not, to have a healthy skepticism of it is because it's very easy, I think, when you've been held hostage to say, oh, okay, thank God they let me have breakfast again. I mean, I know they're going to let me have lunch or they did it, whatever, but at least I get to have breakfast. And I feel like we're being trained to accept lesser than before, just like after 9/11. And so I don't know. I don't think that, I don't think it's a pure win if they say they're doing something based on a lie or and I'm not saying this with the truckers. I'm just saying, like, if you were to say Biden actually were to come out and say, hey, we conquered it. It's fine. We're going. I'd be like, what happened in the last 2 years is probably more important than what he just said. And we should be paying attention to laws that were passed under this, not the fact that it ended, but what happened in between the beginning and the end that we should stay vigilant about. Because I think, a lot of the stuff that became restrictive during COVID was not new. It was something that was passed in some shape or form. And like in my state anyway, we have emergency orders that were passed decades ago, or the ability for them to capitalize on laws that were passed decades ago. It wasn't just like COVID came around and then we went from being an entirely free country with constitutional rights to being held hostage. It was a slow and progressive disease. And so I just think it's worth paying attention to, no matter how it ends, what changed in the last couple of years, so that we don't just get used to salami sandwiches and say at least we get to eat again, but it's crap.
Oh, I'm not saying
that's a good point. Like,
I'm not going to not acknowledge it. I'm saying first bank the win, then go to war. I mean, it's like, take your win, let them do their stupid victory lap for a minute, and then just start picking at it and picking at it and picking at it and picking at it. What am I hearing? Is that you, Kevin?
Trucker phone buzzing.
Oh, it sounded like a horn. Like,
I don't know.
I don't think that's me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's coming. This is Kevin Mathewson from the Kenosha Eye, or Kenosha County Eye.
Yep, Kevin.
Sorry.
Hey guys, how you doing?
All right.
Good,
I don't know if we're still talking a little bit about the trucker convoy. Kevin's going to fill us in about the Joshua Ziminiski case that was very, very interesting in the courthouse. But one last point on this, and I'd love to hear what everybody thinks, because I'm a little frustrated that you see people who are, I'm going to say, are red-pilled or whatever, and they come over and they say, you know what, I didn't realize that Kyle Rittenhouse didn't shoot 3 black people, or I didn't realize. And then there's a lot of people out there who are like, you moron, you're so dumb, I can't believe it, don't you feel stupid? And I'm like, you're not helping. If somebody is coming to you hat in hand and saying, hey, I didn't know that, I agree, shouldn't you just say, thank you, come on over, I'm glad to have you? Do you want to push back and call them dumb or make them feel belittled so that way they'll never change their mind, they'll always double down for the rest of their lives? Is that productive? Everybody's quiet, so I must have made a stellar point. Oh my!
Kevin looks like he's frozen. Kevin, are you alive? Blink twice. If
I'm
you're
here.
alive, or if somebody's pointing a gun.
I think I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, your mic is hot.
Eric, is your question?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah. I'm backing it off. There we go.
Let me make sure I understand your question. Is your question that, like, if somebody has a change of heart, you don't beat them down for being a dumbass and not getting there faster?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm a total dumbass. I was a dumbass. I'm barely making it work now in independent news because I was in corporate news for a long time, and I barely know what I'm talking about now. I'm just scratching the surface of everything that I was in this bubble for so long. And if the people that I have on my channel took that approach, I would be left to the corporate news wolves that I came from, or whoever is the wolf that manages and manipulates their story. And yeah, you never had the chance to change. It's this terrible, it's a terrible perspective, like to not give somebody the chance to learn. I mean, how do people learn? How do you grow up? How do you have an open mind to new ideas if you don't have people who are just willing to, just take you aside and say, here's something that might be helpful for you without judgment or condescension or anything like that. If I'm understanding your question correctly, I mean, I am where I am today because there were people that did not look at me with condescension and say, you are a stupid corporate news lackey and you don't deserve to be in the world of the awakened. I'm here today because there were people who were kind enough to go, okay, Alison, like when I asked about the Ghislaine Maxwell trial and everything, I'm like, the trials, are they set up in a way where you only talk about certain information so that we don't ever get to the evidence that might be really damning? And I remember when the person was like laughing, he's like, okay, Alison, let's start from the beginning. And it was like very magnanimous about it, but I deserve it more than anyone. So yeah, I feel like if you really want to change people's minds, you got to have grace for those who are still in the process of waking up. It's not an overnight event.
Yeah. Plus they're on your side.
I agree with that. I mean, hey, it's never too late to join the Freedom Convoy. Like get on it. And yeah, I'm the same as you, Alison. Like, I had my day in the sun of being ignorant of what was going on. And it was because of great teachers and people around me that helped wake me up to what was happening. And then I went and started doing my research and here I am now. You never know when people are going to come around and see what's going on. And never forget too, this isn't just something that has to do with whether people are smart or stupid or whatever. This has to do with the fact that we're being exposed to the most sophisticated psychological warfare the world has ever seen. Joseph Goebbels would be very envious of the type of technology and knowledge that the CIA has now and the media and all of these different things. So they know exactly what they're doing. They've got the manual of psychology sitting on the desk at all times when they're putting out speeches and putting out policies and putting out, media content. So they know, and that's what created this mass formation psychosis thing, was the fact that they weaponized media and they used fear and created this anxiety disorder in everybody to a point where they can't think clearly anymore, right? And so we have to imagine that it's going to take, everybody's going to come to that, they're going to come to that realization that they were lied to at different points, and they're only going to maybe seed certain things. So they might just realize, man, they really lied to me about this one issue over here. Maybe it's the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Maybe it's the trucker convoy or the pandemic. But then what I've seen is that when you realize they lied to you about one thing,
yeah,
you will automatically ask the $1 million question, which is, well, what else have these guys lied to me about?
Right.
And then you can do one of two things. You can go and look into it, or you can try to shelter yourself from it. But if people come over and they say, hey, I was wrong, I want to learn more. And I've had this happen to me a lot in the last 6 months. People that were kind of shouting me down at the beginning of all this, they're coming over. They're like, what books should I be reading? What shows should I watch? Where do I get my news now? And that's where I go. I don't sit there and go, hey, you were wrong. Get out of my face. I don't do that. I'm like, welcome here, start here, right. Watch this. And I think that that's what we need to do,
Yeah. I'm going to run, you guys, because I have a toddler and a sick horse, but I'm going to be watching while I deal with both of those things. So thank you for letting me participate for a little bit. Kevin, I'm going to be watching all of the amazing things you're about to say. So please do not take this as an insult that the second you're about to talk about quitting the stream. Bye, everybody.
Nice to meet you, Alison.
Yeah, Alison, nice to meet you.
All right. Well, Kevin.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. Kevin's got the headline. He's well, you're friends with Nathan DeBruin now, right?
Yeah. I met him just before the trial, and I interviewed him about some allegations he made about the DA's office, published the article just a day or two before the trial started. And I was the topic of a lot of conversation during his testimony, which was unprofessional on the part of the DA, but got me a lot of clicks on my website. My website broke twice during that trial just because people wanted to know who this gossip blogger was. So they'd ask around and they found it. They went to my site. I had over 1 million people go to my website in November, and
Wow.
So indirectly they made me a few bucks. The prosecutor. So,
By the way, David, Nathan DeBruin is also nicknamed Photo Chad. He was one of the witnesses in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, and brought up essentially that the prosecutor, he felt, was trying to shape his testimony, if you will, or interject information. Would that be a fair representation, Kevin?
Yeah, basically. So he had a meeting at the DA's office only a few weeks before trial, which is kind of late in the game. I mean, when you're prepping for trial, especially a double murder trial, usually you try to get those things done when in plenty of time. But yeah, they basically showed Nate some photos that he took because he was out there taking pictures. He got a picture of me that night. I had never met him. He got a picture of Kyle Rittenhouse, Ziminski, Rosenbaum, all the key players he got photos of, not knowing at the time that he snapped the shutter who these people are and what they would do later in the night. And basically they showed him these pictures and said, do you recognize these people? And he's like, well, now I know who they are, right? I know who Kyle Rittenhouse is now. But when I took that photograph, I had no idea who the kid was. And so they would basically say, okay, well, this is, Joshua Ziminiski. And then they'd kind of do the cop thing where they'd put it down, then they'd pull it up again. Okay, who is this? And he's like, look, I know who that is now, but I did not know who it was at that time. So you're asking me to change my statement that I wrote a year ago and say that person is Joshua Ziminiski? I'm not doing it, because at the time I wrote that statement and signed it, I didn't know who that guy was. I'm not changing my statement. And that really pissed him off. So they ended up releasing him from his subpoena. And they told him, well, look, we don't need you. So now we're going to let Mark Richards have you, Kyle's attorney. And, they're not going to be nice to you like we were going to be. And, you kind of ruined our relationship, and we got more, trials to prosecute with you as a witness. So you're on your own, kind of thing. And that pissed him off. And it made him afraid, because he was thinking, man, am I going to get in trouble? I mean, are they going to accuse me of perjury? I mean, what's going on? So he ended up hiring a lawyer as a witness, which is not super common, but it happens. Sometimes witnesses, if the questions start to be too irrelevant and it sounds like they might be sniffing around for evidence of that the witness did something wrong, they want an attorney there. And that's what he did. And during the trial, the prosecution kind of switched from trying to prosecute Kyle to trying to protect the integrity of their department. And that's when he said, well, we didn't ask you to change your story, right?
Yeah, they were arguing. Krause started to argue with him and said, well, wasn't I really nice to you when you went in the office? And it was some wild testimony, because it went from, you expect some decorum or some degree of, just whatever. Here's a witness,
right.
But it's like, well, wait a minute. Didn't I say I liked your pictures? Didn't I? It was just this kind of sniveling, like my feelings are hurt. And it was a very weird testimony.
Yeah, it was awkward. And people watching, like you, who don't know the backstory, mm-hmm. it just seems weird. But people in the community, they know that I've been exposing little things about these guys that shed them in not such a great light. So it didn't surprise them that he was saying, oh, you talked to some gossip blogger who, attacks my office. And DeBruin's like, I don't know who this guy is. He asked me to do an interview. I did an interview. I told the truth. He reported it. It's true. What else do you want from me? How do you hold that against me? And now the guy's getting emails and communications from people all over the world. I mean, people like him. He's a likable guy. He did the right thing. He told the truth, and he's kind of getting penalized, and it's too bad.
Now, where we're going with this is on Monday, the guy they asked him to change his testimony or statement to identify was Joshua Ziminiski. Now, Joshua Ziminiski, from what I recall, essentially was like the starter gun to the whole incident with Rittenhouse. He was next to Rosenbaum, and when Rittenhouse's back was turned, he was kind of trying to get away from Rosenbaum, who's just shouting at everybody, really, at the time. Ziminski fired his pistol in the air. Kyle, would have no idea, from behind if it was, being shot at him in the air. Obviously, it's going to amp the tension completely. and he's trying to scramble. Meanwhile, Rosenbaum was circling around trying to ambush him, it appeared.
Yeah.
And then their confrontation took place. So all that went down. Kyle Rittenhouse's trial's over. Everything happened with Rosenbaum, Gage, Gorowitz, and I forgot the third guy. I feel bad. Anyway, all that's done, but there's still Ziminski out there because he still did fire the gun, creating a public nuisance. He was I don't know if he was allowed to have a gun or not. From my understanding, he's not actually has a felony, so it's weird.
I can get into that. So the thing about Ziminski is there's countless videos of him, and the entire time he had a gun in his hand, just walking around with it in his hand, right? And that's not a safe way to carry a gun. It's not a lawful way to carry a gun. I mean, if you're a police officer and you're approaching, a felony stop or you're searching a house, of course you have your gun out, but you keep the thing holstered for safety purposes unless you need it. But walking around, but here's the thing. So Ziminski, I'm a private investigator, just to give you guys some context. So I work for criminal defense attorneys. I do private work, so I can get a background on somebody pretty easily. I have databases through the Department of Justice, and so Joshua Ziminiski is a very bad dude. I mean, this guy has a rap sheet, 20 some pages long, and this is a guy who bounces between Kenosha County, where the riots occurred, and the county to the north of us, Racine. Both have progressive prosecutors, these Soros-backed type of prosecutors who won't prosecute certain crimes, and certain crimes, they will. And this guy has been, charged with robbery and very, very serious felonies throughout his entire life, right? And every time it somehow gets pled down to misdemeanor. So this is a guy with several dozen arrests throughout his lifetime, right? Several charges of felony, but these weak DAs pled him down. So unbelievably, he was not a convicted felon at this time. And in Wisconsin, if you have any type of domestic conviction, you can't carry a gun, and he did not. He was out on bail for a domestic battery, but he had not lost his privilege yet. And that's kind of a sick thing, because these prosecutors who let these bad, violent criminals off time and time again never lose their right to carry a gun. And I'm a big Second Amendment supporter, but when you've been convicted of several violent crimes, including carrying a concealed weapon, like 3 different arrests and convictions for carrying a concealed weapon, he's a bad dude. And if you notice on his forehead, that's an upside down crucifix, and then on the back of his head, it's a big tattoo that says sin, and just real demonic type tattoos. I mean,
see the teardrops, which is a gang symbol for killings.
Not a guy you want to bring home to mom. Not a guy you want to watch your kids. I mean, just a very bad dude. And he stands 6'5". So I mean, he's a big dude too, is the thing.
Yeah, look at the cop behind him. You can see the
right. Yeah. So I mean, he and you guys have probably seen on the news this guy who ran over the parade in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's this big controversy about bail. Bail should not be low for these violent criminals. And this guy who ran over all those people at the parade had tried to run over his girlfriend a few weeks before, and they gave him a $1,000 bond. Okay, he's back on the street again, and now he kills a bunch of people.
Well, and not only that, his previous crime before trying to run it down his girl was bail jumping.
Right. So he's got a record of not going to court or committing new crimes while out on bond, which is inherently somebody who doesn't follow the rules. So in regards to Ziminski, here's the funny thing. So the police did a good job of identifying this guy, right? They identified, because he goes by aliases and stuff like that. I guess he's got an amateur porn channel on like Pornhub or one of those things.
He's just a winner all around.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's a laundry list of what is it you don't like about a person, and he might have a check mark there.
So anyways, so the police identify this guy, right? And they arrest him. And for those of you who don't know how the criminal justice system, police recommend charges to the DA. So they recommended a charge called second-degree reckless endangerment, which basically says you did something with no regard to human life. And shooting a gun in the air during a riot matches that. most reasonable people would think, because guns eventually fall, or bullets eventually fall, and people can get hurt. He could have tripped and shot somebody by accident. So just because he says, "Oh, it was in the air on purpose," still something that's not safe to do, right? They recommended charging him with bail jumping because he was already out on bail for punching his kid's mother twice in the face while she was driving and kicking her out of the car. They recommended obstruction of a police officer and disorderly conduct. And there was still an open case for arson because they suspected him in one or more arsons. So the police did this big investigation. They forwarded the referral over, and they said, please charge him with these 4 things. So the DA looks through the 100-page police report and says, well, we agree he should be charged. We're going to charge him with disorderly conduct. So disorderly conduct for his role in some arsons, his role in shooting a gun in the air, which, like you said, if I'm 17 years old and I'm being chased by somebody who has threatened to kill me twice already that night, and I hear a gunshot behind me, I'm going to assume it's the guy that's trying to kill me behind me. So I know, like you said, he could have been the guy really who put all this in motion. This all could have been his fault.
Casey is kind of making my point true, and it's true. Whatever you think of Rosenbaum and everything else, if Ziminski didn't fire the gun, all of the events after may not have happened.
Very possible. And so now you have this guy who's charged with disorderly conduct only. And of course, I published an article that says, hey, this dude who we've been watching on these videos for the last few weeks, the DA charged him with disorderly conduct, and people just lost their mind. So they're emailing, calling the DA. So they thought, okay, we'll appease the masses. We'll add 2 charges. So they added obstruction of an officer, and they added curfew violation, which at this point, the chief judge had already said, you idiots in the city did not properly enact the ordinance, so we can't prosecute these. He dismissed them all. So they knew they weren't going to get a conviction on the curfew. So then many more weeks go by. People are pissed off. They're emailing the DA. They're emailing, the police. Why is this guy being charged with only disorderly conduct and curfew or whatever? Finally, they charge him with arson because his wife videotaped him the whole time, Facebook Live or one of those, and it showed him lighting a trailer on fire. So I mean, you can't get much more evidence than that. And so finally, they charged him with arson, and his bond was $1,000. And what's funny is they charged his wife too, and she was on probation for retail theft, which is a minor crime, right? So she got revoked and went to prison. So she's in prison for her role, and this guy's walking around. He was out on bail for 400 and some days until this incident that we're about to talk about. So this progressive prosecutor out of Racine, remember, he punched his kid's mom in the face twice. They arrested him. He was out on bail. She decides, without any explanation, she dismisses the domestic battery charges against him. And in Wisconsin, if you have an open case, the prosecutors can ask you about that. Hey, isn't it true you have an open case right now? Yes, I do. What are you being charged with? 2 counts of domestic battery. That's really powerful for a prosecutor in the eyes of the jury, right? Here's a guy who's facing another case right now, beating up his wife. So they did that to help out, him. So anyways, the star witness, there's only 3 witnesses on that list for the Ziminski trial. You have a police officer. You have Nate DeBruin, because he has to authenticate the photos that he took. They can't just, there's no stipulation that all the photos were true and accurate. So they got to get him in there to say, yes, I took those photos, right? And then his wife. So they're going to call his wife to the stand, and this isn't covered under the spousal shield or the whatever they call it. So she's going to have to testify against him, and she was right next to him the whole time. So I'm sure she's going to say, of course, yeah. I mean, because this guy's going to prison, so it's not like they're going to have a long distance relationship when she gets out. But so anyway, so DeBruin is basically the star witness besides his wife in this case, and so he was supposed to go to trial Monday. He was scheduled to go to trial at 9 a.m. So I was approved by the court to be one of the pool photographers. So me and the Kenosha News, that's a fake news website here in Kenosha, but they got the other.
I like that little dig you're slaying in there.
And they got but the photographer He's a good guy. It's just that the management there, they're fake. So there's two of us to be the pool photographers, so we have to share the photos. And the other photographer's like, yeah, usually nothing happens during jury selection. So my bosses aren't going to send me there. And I'm like, well, I'm going. I know this guy's nuts. You never know what somebody like Ziminski is going to do, right? So I'm pulling up to the courthouse about 8:45. And as I'm approaching the courthouse, I see Ziminski. You can't miss the guy. He's 6'5". He's got tattoos all over. And, he's got two little kids that he's got holding their hands, and his mom is there, and she's got kids that I think belong to his wife from a different marriage. And they're crossing the street, and I just pop out my cell, and I take a couple photos, and I start recording. And then I see Nathan DeBruin get out, and he's got this big exhibit with a photo. He did that in a Rittenhouse trial. He printed out his own exhibits, and the lawyer says, we've never seen this before. He just takes pride in his work, and he wanted to print them out so the quality was good. I mean, power to him. So anyways, I saw Nate walking towards the courthouse, and I turned my music down, and I heard Ziminski say something like, stop, come over here, something like that. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I was getting ready to get out of my truck and say, hey, leave him the hell alone, you son of a bitch. He's a witness. You're not supposed to be talking to him. And then he started saying, that's not me in the picture. That's not me. You're lying. Get back here, which I'm like, man, he's going to be freaked out because this is a bad dude that he's about to testify against. Right. And I think the intent is pretty clear.
Also, I found something out. How tall is Nate?
Nate, I would say, is probably 5'3" or 4.
So we're talking about the guy's
guess.
a foot taller. And intimidating and tatted up.
Yeah.
Nate is not. He does not represent himself as a physical specimen.
Right.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he's a smaller guy, and I'm always scared of somebody like that who has nothing to lose, who has been to prison, who has been to jail, who doesn't. What's another battery when you have 14? I'm just making that number up, but those are people that you got to be scared of because they just don't know, right? And so he's kind of shouting at Nate, and I kind of wanted to pull the truck over, get out, and just raise hell because I hate seeing that type of shit, stuff happen. So then they went into the courthouse, and I parked, and I went up, and Nate was talking to his attorney and told him what happened, and then I saw his attorney talking to the Binger, and I just kind of moseyed over there, and I'm like, well, I'm a witness too. I saw it happen, and this particular day, there was 4 pages. This was a 4-page calendar. So Judge Schroeder, he's the same judge that oversaw the Rittenhouse case, is the presiding judge for the Ziminski trial. And so he had a huge calendar. So the lawyers all had a sidebar with him, and he said, I don't want to hear about anything until it's his turn. So he didn't want to hear anything. So Ziminski decides to sit right behind me. I'm in the pew, or the seat where the media sits, and he sits right behind me. Okay. And I can hear him try to get my attention. And I'm like, oh God, what does this guy want? And I wrote articles about him. I posted his mugshots and his criminal history and what a scumbag he is. And I called him a bad hombre. That's like a Trump term. I like that term, bad hombre. So he's like, hey, you the Kenosha County Eye dude? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. He's like, I don't appreciate all the shit you've been talking about me on your website. Well, I said, stop breaking the law, man. I don't know what to tell you. You keep breaking the law and lighting shit on fire, I'm going to write about it. I mean, that's what I do. And so I just knew it was going to be an issue. And then when his case was called, Nate's attorney, the Ziminski's attorney, and Binger all went up to talk to the judge, and his attorney basically told him what had happened, right? And said, my client is afraid, and Nate was shaking. I saw it. And Nate, the attorney basically said, look, my client is not going to sleep right unless this guy's in jail. I mean, he's got exposure here of almost 4 years in prison, and you need to lock him away until the trial. And the judge said, you're right. Based on the evidence I've seen in the Rittenhouse trial, because there's tons of, the evidence is abundant about, it's all on video. Videos don't lie, right? And he said, based on that evidence I've already seen, and now these new accusations, deputy, take him into custody. I'm raising your bond from 1,000 to 14,000. So, I was there with my camera, and that's a photographer's dream, is just to see that cool, clinking of the handcuffs and taking him back. And, he turns around to Mom, I love you. And she starts screaming. And what's funny is she started screaming. All he did was say XYZ, the same thing the attorney just said that he said, right? And intimidation is not always going to be, hey, Eric, if you testify against me in this trial, I'm going to murder you and your family. It's not like that. It's, hey, I heard you're a witness against, man. That's not going to be good for you. So, I mean, it's, people are saying, well, that's not
He should never have talked to him in any way, shape, or form.
When
he should have ignored him, walked
Absolutely.
in separately, even just kept his distance, whatever. Just, you should never engage. I mean, if somebody says, even if he's one of your witnesses, you shouldn't say anything. So
yeah, so Binger didn't really care when he was being told about this, and then the judge, after DeBruin's attorney says, I want him locked away. He said, what do you think, attorney Binger? Well, he just had a real weak argument. He's just really, his head is not in this one. He doesn't like prosecuting Antifa / BLM violent rioters. His thing is, prosecuting Second Amendment, patriots, like Kyle Rittenhouse. This is just not in his wheelhouse, So he was kind of like unprepared, and he's the one that's supposed to be advocating for this guy, and so Binger basically said, yeah, I did hear that those accusations, this and that, and the judge says, well, we're gonna delay this trial. I want to get a report on to see if he's going to be charged with further crimes. So in Wisconsin, if you're out on bail for a felony, if you steal a stick of gum, you get that charge, right? Retail theft, which is not a big deal, but you also get a felony bail jumping charge, which can lock you away for another 6 years. So that's why it's going to be a very important charging decision, because I think we all know that he was undercharged. 1 count of arson and disorderly conduct and obstruction for shooting a gun in the air during the riot and lighting. We know of 1 for sure because it's on video, but how many other buildings did he burn down? We'll never know. And Joshua Ziminiski is the definition of rioter. If you looked it up in the encyclopedia, it would have a picture of him, somebody who runs around with a gun, lights shit on fire, shoots his gun up in the air. I mean, he's a rioter, right? And Schroeder has made many public statements about how much disdain he has for the criminal element that was out on the streets, August 22nd through the 27th. So in my opinion, knowing Judge Schroeder, as far as his reputation and his past practices, I think he's going to max this scumbag out. And if he gets a chance to add another 6 years because of a bail jumping charge, he will do it. So I hope Binger does the right thing and charges him with some type of crime. Maybe it doesn't rise to the level of witness intimidation, but certainly disorderly conduct, harassment, something of that type. I mean, I'm a witness. DeBruin is a witness, and he's credible. Like me, he has no criminal history. He's an honest guy. I did a public records request to the sheriff's department for all the video footage. I got it right away because they're on the ball. And I said to the deputy, I said, am I the first one to ask this? I mean, or did Binger already get it? Oh, no, you're the first one. So I'm like, why am I doing Binger's job for him? So I sent the video to Binger. I'm like, hey, you should have asked for this, but here it is. It's all set up for you. And then Bevo Fox, he's a Twitter guy who's like a super master video guy. And he fixed all the video up. He synced it and put the boxes and the arrows, made it look perfect. So he wrapped it up in a bow for Binger. So I think, I'm a credible witness. I testify all the time. I'm a private investigator. I'm well known in the area. Photo Chad is beloved by all of America. I mean, the guys are ordering autographed pictures from him. They want to meet him.
It's unlikely.
Yeah, he's
David. You've got to look up Nathan DeBruin. It's kind of heartwarming in a weird way.
Oh yeah. So I mean, so now he's got a birthday coming up in a few days, Ziminski. So he's going to spend his 36th birthday in jail where he belongs. And then, so here's the thing. Here's the kicker. That I don't know if you've read the article I posted this morning, but
no.
Ziminski's lawyer put in a bond motion today. and he wants the bond lowered back down to 1,000, which Schroeder's not going to do. I don't care if the Pope writes a letter saying, please lower his bond. So actually, Photo Chad's watching.
Yeah, I see that. I thought Photo Chad was too big, or I would have sent him an invite too.
No, he's one of those guys that goes through his Twitter, even though he's got thousands of comments, and he'll like everyone, and
Good for him.
he's a real genuinely good guy, and I'm proud to call him my friend. We never knew each other before this. There's wild conspiracies that I was following Nate, and we set Ziminski up. No, nobody set Ziminski up. Ziminski is just one of those moth attracted to light, like a criminal is attracted to lawless environments like the Kenosha riots. He just can't help himself, right? He's a criminal, a photo, I was reading Photo Chad. He's a career criminal, and that's just what they do. They see an opportunity to commit crimes, and they do it. And so nobody set him up. And so what this attorney said in his motion, which you got to understand, defense attorneys who defend very, very, very bad people, it's their job. So you can't fault them for advocating for their clients. But in this motion, he basically accused De Bruin of making this up and exaggerating for financial gain. And so knowing, and having talked to Nathan on a regular basis, he's actually been going through a lot. I mean, he watched somebody die 6 feet in front of him. I'm sure part of him was thinking, okay, that could have been me, right? I was PTSD, right, probably. I had to watch somebody die and another guy get his arm blown off. I mean, that was tough for him. So he's been diagnosed with PTSD. I've never seen somebody get their arm blown off. Of course, I cheer. Bad guy. Good. When you see these concealed carrier people, shoot their.
Hang on a second, Kevin.
Oh, sure.
David's got to run, I believe, and I think he was done with the trucker part. Now, where can people find you, man?
Yeah, thanks. Anyways, DWTruthwarrior.com is my site. I'm also producing a documentary series called Cult of the Medics. People go and check that out at cultofthemedics.com.
Oh, cool.
And my social media, DWTruthwarrior. You'll find me on Twitter. My main is probably Telegram. I've been kicked off all the other ones. So yeah, but thanks for having me on, boys. And I definitely got to catch up on the details of this case. So pleasure to meet you, Kevin.
I like your logo, man. Your logo's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Like a Spartan helmet, kind of.
Yeah, it's a Spartan helmet with two birds with their wings. It's kind of a few things worked in there.
Did somebody design that like custom for you?
I kind of just tracked it down and bought the rights and was like, "This is perfect."
I like that.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Very cool.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much, dude. And please kind of keep in touch. I might want to, talk again or, try to learn more about what's going on. I love seeing that it's peaceful and super successful and ongoing. Hopefully.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you guys. I'll catch you off air.
All right. Later.
All right. Man. Cheers, everybody.
Later on. All right.
So where were we at?
I
was rambling on about something.
No, pretty close to wrapping up. It was just finding out what was going on.
Anyways, long story short is Nate's been going through a lot, and he was accosted at work a few times. People because he didn't take a stand. He didn't have a dog in the fight, so to speak. He didn't get up there and say, a quit Kyle Rittenhouse, I'm supporting Kyle. He went up there and told the truth of what he saw. That's all he did. But at work, it had been happening a couple times at work where people were accosting him and saying, "Oh, you supported a murderer," and he's like, "I'm working. I can't. This is unprofessional." So it got so difficult for him. So the last straw was when this couple kind of cornered him in a store. He's a retail merchandiser, and he's like, "You know what? I've had enough of this. I don't want to go to work afraid that someone's going to recognize me and talk shit and threaten me." So he had to take an unpaid leave from work because he couldn't do it. And after fighting, he finally got a short-term disability, but he's getting like around 40% of what he normally would get. So now his longtime girlfriend that he lives with, she's got 3 jobs. So he's not doing this for personal gain. And I'm sure if he could have this go back in time and none of this happened, I'm sure he would do that. So he's raised quite a bit of money to help with bills and attorney's fees and therapy. And he's not doing this for personal gain. You can take my word for it.
Awesome. And yeah, again, Nate, didn't know. I definitely would have asked you to come on as well, but you're big time anymore. There's a new Gifts and Go for him, so everybody definitely check it out. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up because I want to be polite to Joe Neerman of Good Logic. His show probably started a few minutes ago, so I don't want to have too much of an overlap with him. But Kevin, dude, thank you so much, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric. Nice to meet you, buddy.
Nice to meet you. And everybody, this is a new channel. It's actually a spinoff from my other channel. I'm doing all the news and the legal panels. I'm the one who kind of put together, well, a lot of the legal panels. The term, the lawyer invoice, actually was created on one of my Friday live streams. It happens every other Friday. So if you like this, please consider subscribing. Trying to build up this new little home with a lot of different news, different people, people that, you know, like Joe's on every other Friday, damn near. Lita's on, Legal Mindset, Viva Fry, Robert Barnes.
Super cool people. All of them.
Everybody. For some reason, a lot of lawyers. So awesome to have a PI, man.
Let me, if you don't mind, I'm just going to plug my stuff real
Absolutely,
quick.
please.
I like having people on my Twitter, which is Kenosha CTYI, which is Kenosha CTYEYE, and then Kenosha County Eye.com, and you can find my Twitter and my YouTube there. If you could subscribe, I will keep you in the loop for the Ziminski trial if you're interested in that. I think it's going to be interesting. I think he's going to get convicted and do some prison time. So this is one where we're going to be, unfortunately, rooting for Binger.
Well, you know, broken clocks.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
They're right twice a day. Well, thank you so much, man.
Have a good one.
You too.